Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've done a few videos over the course of many years. Feels like many years anyway. Many videos at least around kind of TNA or cheeky, uh, cheesecake type material inside of comics. And I think I get mail from time to time of people who are like, I don't know why you're disgracing yourself talking about this stuff, and it's like, man, sex sells. I don't know what to tell you. Again, as being a retailer for many years, and you don't even need to be a retailer. Just go look at pop culture or music. It's when when Beyonce or Rihanna are doing a video or putting on an album cover, they don't like show up and like stand there in a parka, with them just layers and layers of clothes. There is a aspect of, people know what is marketable and what sells, and cheesecake art, cheesecake photos, that kind of stuff sells no matter what goes on. I understand that, you've got, what was the assistant who was on, who did video games. It had baby in the name. Anyway, I understand that there's this wave of like, let's desexualize, let's make everything uglier. And it's a big problem. You can listen to YouTube, everybody's like shouting about it all the time. And yeah, it's dumb more than anything, because people can try this. But I heard somebody's commentary. It's like they're gonna do this until one day we all accept it. Nobody's gonna accept this. I'm sorry. You can push it at the corporate level. You can kind of desexualize things all you want, but there are some very basic kind of human needs, human kind of what people are attracted to that goes on. There just is. And so really, for all of the arguments and all the fighting and all the attempts at baby games, maybe was that anyway. For all of that, all that happens is, it hurts its own sales, it hurts its own marketability, it does worse. Now there's a limit to it. If you go back to the 90s in comics, you had Sue Storm in like the boob window costume, and I that didn't work. You have to apply it in the right places, but at the end of the day, some level of TNA and that kind of stuff, just it is successful, it works. And I don't know about disgracing myself or any of that kind of stuff. It's just I'm responding to what is very clear in the market. Anyway, you could go down a whole rabbit hole with this kind of stuff, but we do have a mail kind of talking about some of this, and in particular asking, why doesn't DC do more of it, or when did DC become the Puritan company? Anyway, let's get a chance. It says, howdy Perch. Recently did a funny video about hiding our cheeky comics from our wives or girlfriends. Well, as a DC Comics reader, at the risk of sounding like a dirty old man, it would be nice to have a few cheeky books to hide from my wife every now and then. Now, to be fair, DC titles in the 90s and early 2000s might have had a little too much cheesecake in them. You gotta have that balance. Often at the expense of the writing. I love boobs as much as the next guy, but I need a good story too. I guess I read comics for the pictures and the articles, as do most, for what it's worth. It's funny because people have kind of rose-colored glasses memories of things like the Marvel swimsuit special. That didn't sell well. In my shop, anyway. I think the first one did okay, and everything else did poorly. It's because it's like, okay, yeah, it's just pinups. On the other hand, you get Psylocke, stepping out of the shower in an issue of X-Men with Cyclops, and people like that one. So it's like if it's tied in, connected to the story, and there's a little bit of fan service there, it works. If it's nothing but just kind of pinups and nothing else, again, some people will buy it, but it doesn't, it is a comic book product. Same thing. If you've got, I don't know, if you got Beyonce kind of naked on a horse with a cowboy hat, but on the album, the songs are terrible, it's not going to save it. You gotta put the two together. Anyway. Okay. But these days the pendulum has swung back to the mail. But these days the pendulum has swung too far the other way for DC. It's almost all story and no cheesecake. WWE seems to have the same problem. Yeah. I mean, but who's that? Vasquez, with the it's the most ridiculous move in the history that makes Booker T lose his mind. Anyway, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we went from a glut of bra and panty matches in the Attitude Era, that was a wrestling thing, to very serious matches with very little sizzle today. I'm happy that female performers are being taken seriously and are frankly putting on very entertaining matches. But a blouse-ripping catfight between Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss every now and then would be nice. I mean, wouldn't it be for all of us? I'm with you. I mean, in general, I understand your point. Although Liv Morgan, I mean, feels like she's coming out. She's coming out with the show every time. I didn't like the gimmick matches. When back in the day, other than that one where they like it was in a weird little swimming pool with was it the cat? And she just took her top completely off and like to this day I've heard radically different views on if that was a work or if that was a shoot. And anyway, what are your opinions? Do you remember this thing? All right, but back to comics. All right, we'll finish things. It says, my question to you, Perch, is there a way for DC Comics editorial to find a happy medium? A good balance of story and sexuality will go a long way. No pun intended. I mean, there is a good, to me, I think there's an easy way to do this. I do think that comic books, a little bit like wrestling, have trouble with restraint. So if you remember like the New 52, you had the, was it the Red Hood and the Outlaws or anyway, you had Starfire and she comes out and just for all intents and purposes nude. I mean, they should have drawn her nude at that point. It didn't make a hell of a lot of sense. Was it Red Hood? But I think you can, and it was a nice panel, don't get me wrong, but you have to kind of put the two together. It's a little bit, to use Sue Storm in the Fantastic Four is a good example. I know you're a DC guy. A little bit of flirting and sexuality and fan service works. Throwing Sue Storm in a weird little boob window plus thong does not. And I understand that they later, there's like, well, yeah, she's under the influence of malice and other things, and that's why she's acting like a whore, and it's fine. But it's still, it didn't really work. It doesn't work for that character, and arguably it will never work well for the Invisible Woman. So I just think you have to balance it out. Now DC. I think is going through a little bit of an era where they are like, hey, we can't be that kind of company. And, you have some pretty kind of aggressive voices kind of throughout editorial and some of the other people in the company who are just, their view is probably a few notches more, weirdly, I was going to say religious right. It's obviously not political, but their views are a little bit more Puritanian. I don't know. I think, quite frankly, you've just got some people at DC who are absolutely terrified at somebody on Twitter or Blue Sky going like, this is unacceptable, Cheesecake. This isn't treating women seriously. You've got people who are really, really terrified of that. And they just do not, they're like, this will ruin our reputation. We can't do it. What will our friends do? Like, you got some people who are just really hung up on that. And it goes back to just an acceptance of what it can do for you and what it can't. I find that, like I was saying earlier, I find that comics and a lot of people in comics tend to live in kind of extremes. And it's a little bit like hey, we can keep doing what we're doing and, and screw the fans, or, hey, we're just going to go and get on our knees and apologize and say we screwed everything up and the fans are right. And just, and it's like, yeah, both those versions are dumb. Those are that's silly. Businesses don't operate that way. You just need to find, for lack of a better word, the middle, the balance. You need to find you get a little bit of both with Cheesecake and that kind of stuff. I think it's super easy to just, put in some, nice things from time to time. You have a number of characters that lend themselves to that. Again, I think DC has figured out that balance to some extent with Nightwing. They don't have a problem having him run around in his underwear or, get the artist to do a splash page with his butt showing. They They figured it out there. Well, just apply the same thing to others. It's a little bit like the anime or manga One Piece. You've got Nami, who every now and then will, show off some boobs or whatever. Not naked, because that would go against her character. But I guess she does happiness punch every now and then. But anyway, she'll do something that is clearly fan service in One Piece, and it works. And I think there's plenty of characters in DC who could do the same, and it doesn't break the entire world. And I mean, stop acting like a Amish, you know. You could. It feels like I'm taking shots at the Amish. It is strange to me that comic books for many decades really kind of prided themselves on not being, stuck up. What I said earlier, the religious right, the really like everything must be closed, the clothed collars buttoned up, and hair tied back stiffly, and yet where women or portrayals of women are concerned, it feels like that's kind of the attitude from people who are still believe they're quite kind of liberal in their values, but where women are concerned, it's like Iran. So I don't know. That's the hypocrisy of people. What can you do? Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. Good luck. I hope DC put some cheesecake in there for you someday, so you could properly hide it from your wife and girlfriend, just as God intended. Thanks for listening.